As with the past two DJI releases, their latest drone, the Avata 2, has quickly become the most overhyped, overpriced, unrepairable thing on the market. But what if I told you that that might not actually be the case this time around? Well, today I'm going to show you whether the Avata 2 is actually good or bad, if you should consider upgrading from the OG Avata, or if you're new to the hobby, with lower prices on secondhand OG Avatas starting to come up, what combo is now the best value for your money? Now, just before I can show you any of this, I first need you to understand the one essential factor that makes this video entirely different from so many others. For the most part, large creators have been sent their Avata 2 combos for free. I, on the other hand, was not. That means every single word here is spoken as unbiased as possible, and this entire purchase was entirely with my own money, just like it would be if you were to purchase your own. So with that being said, it's important for me to now take you through MDJS, the M&M Drone Judgment System. This is the system that I'll be using to score the Avata 2 with, and then later on we'll use it again to compare it against the OG Avata. To be the perfect drone, it'll need to score 10 points, aka M&Ms, in each of the 10 categories, totaling up to 100 M points. Let's start off in category 1, the user experience of setup and use. If you aren't familiar with DJI products, they, generally speaking, have this category on absolute lock. Everything comes ready to go in beginner-friendly mode, so to actually unlock the full capability, you need to take a quick dive into the settings. Beforehand, however, you get provided with step-by-step tutorials for every single component, and I genuinely don't think that there is any other FPV system out there that has as much of a seamless experience. This really does start us off strong with 10 out of 10 M points. Next up is one of the most important categories, flight performance. If you stick with the motion controller, then there really isn't anything else like it. It's a very unique and fun way for beginners to pick up FPV. However, it is also extremely limiting. Because of these limits, you won't be able to push the drone super hard, so to be able to truly discuss flight performance, we need to bring out the DJI Remote 2 and 3. Either one of these remotes allow us to go into full manual mode where the only limits are that of the drone. So how have I found its performance? For the most part, this is actually a solid flying drone that reacts well and coasts through the sky pretty damn smoothly. It can perform all of your basic maneuvers, but it is going to start to struggle when you get too complex with it. There's also one really notable downside that exists that affects the performance, but I'm leaving that until category 9, and you'll see why when we get there. The drone certainly feels a bit underpowered when you go full throttle. However, I would say for most of the flying that I've used this drone with, I haven't actually felt limited by its power. Overall, and without that upcoming downside taken into consideration, I'm going to put the flight performance at a reasonable 6 M points, as it's not going to blow your socks off, but it's also not going to disappoint most people. Alright, this next category is again one that is super important. If you've ever flown a fairly standard FPV drone before, you'll know that the batteries tend to last between, I don't know, 2 to 5 minutes depending on how you fly. DJI states that the Avata 2 can fly for up to 23 minutes, which if it actually could, would be insane. So yeah, you guessed it, category 3 is flight time. Unfortunately, the DJI Avata can't actually fly for 23 minutes in the real world. Instead, flying casually, you'll be looking at anywhere between 14 and 18 minutes total, and that's running the battery all the way down. I would be lying to you if I said that this still didn't actually really impress me, as it's a super long time to be flying around for, and I just don't see myself needing more than one battery per location. It's earned itself 9 M points for tripling the standard time, and well, making my fingers hurt from, sitting there the whole time flying. Now for my favorite category, camera quality. If you've ever seen the DJI Action 4 camera, you'll know that it stands its ground pretty damn well against any other action camera like GoPro. Now, why on earth would I be bringing action cameras into this? Well, that's because the camera sensor on the Avata 2 is literally the exact same sensor that is inside the Action 4. Even just saying that out loud is actually crazy, but the moment that you put the goggles on, it takes it to a whole nother level. I used to believe that DJI's previous system, O3, would be able to replace most people's GoPros, and I still stand by that, but now it does go a step further and it just locks that belief in solid stone with O4. It genuinely feels the exact same as if you were to be flying through a GoPro directly, just with a nice low latency. Piggybacking onto this as well is the video recording. We're being given access to DJI's log-in profile, which is super easy to grade, and also a super solid color profile in general, so that's yet again another big plus. All this to say, it's actually a pretty easy 10 M points here. I have to admit, so far the Avata 2 is smashing the MDJS out of the park, but maybe I've spoken a little too soon. Okay, category 5, FPV drones are known notoriously for their DIY approach and also the ability to be fixed up after crashing, right? So when I watched through Ian's video from Madstech where he tore down the Avata 2 entirely, I was left feeling pretty damn disappointed. Category 5 is all about repairability, or well in this case, the extreme lack thereof. Ian quickly came to the conclusion that any form of repair, even a simple cracked frame, would not be user repairable and instead would have to be sent back to DJI engineers. That means if this is your first drone, you'd better be damn careful with it because the only thing you're going to be able to change out is batteries and propellers. I'm going to give it one singular endpoint for not permanently attaching the propellers and requiring a total rebuild if they got damaged. So I'm a tad salty about this bit. But let's move forward to our 6th category, which was a hot topic of discussion in a recent email that I sent out to my FPV newsletter. If you received that, you've already got the basics, but I'll just need to dive a bit deeper into it all for you. Category 6 is focused on our lovely compatibility. And also, I am sorry for using a measuring cup. I may have run out of different glasses. Anywho, as of making this video, these are the current accessories that are compatible with the DJI Avata 2. We've got the Remote 2 and 3, RC Motion 2 and 3, and Goggles 2, 3, and Integra. Now, I get it, this might all sound great right off the bat as DJI have finally made some changes that accommodate the OG users. However, still not all flowers and rainbows. Right now, if you want to use the Remote 2 with the Avata 2, you're limited to using the Goggles 2 or the Integras. That means if you buy the Avata 2 combo, which has the super comfy Goggles 3, and you want to be able to fly manually with that setup, you'll need to grab yourself a new Remote 3. That now locks you in, as currently there is no support for the Remote 3 or Goggles 3 with any other previous generation FPV drones, or any air units either. The way DJI makes us navigate around these accessories seriously is starting to feel like I'm wrestling an octopus of confusion who is being kind, but still slaps me in the face occasionally. Anyways, thanks to that octopus of confusion, I'm only handing over 5 endpoints. Yeah, take that, DJI. Alright, next up we've got range. This is for both the video link and also the remote link, and as if to be expected, the Avata 2 blows pretty much every other system out of the water here again. The penetration of the video link between the drone and objects is seriously impressive. The distance that you can fly away from yourself is also crazy good, with DJI claiming 13 kilometers. And from my experience flying it at closer distances, I've certainly noticed an increase in penetration ability. I haven't had any bad connection issues, and I've also noticed that the video link is the most solid out of any other system I've tried. No complaints here from me, and it's getting 10 M points for this. Okay, category 8 is only something that we can really judge by the looks and feel of the drone and the longevity over time. This longevity isn't something that we can actually refer to yet, as it hasn't been released for long enough, so we'll be taking everything from the looks and feel. This category is all about the build quality. Again, I'm going to bring this back to the fact that it is DJI who are known for making solid products with well-built internals. It's not super often that you're going to find issues with the quality of things, and that's no exception with the Avata 2. It doesn't feel cheap, it doesn't look like crap, and the accessories mostly follow suit. I'll hand over 7 M points here, as the quality isn't going to amaze you, but it's also not going to feel cheap at all. Alright, now we're on to category 9, the category that contains our one notable downside in performance from earlier. But before I can get on to that, you first need to understand why I waited until now to tell you about this downside. I'm calling this category known faults, but it can also go under the title of miscellaneous problems, as these are possibly things that could be fixed in future updates. And yes, I know that I'm stretching the limits of what a glass is here, I get it. The first thing though is the way that the Avata 2 flies, and I'm not talking performance here either. There's really no other way to describe this fault without calling it a digital and limiting tune. Think it's almost too snappy, but also gets throttle controlled in a weird way. A few other reviewers have said that it feels like a terrible tune. I'm not really able to say much on this as I still suck at tuning, but knowing DJI, they've probably opted for a longer flight time over performance, making the tune crappier. Remember, that is just an opinion, not a fact. The second thing though is tagged directly onto this and has been brought over from the OG Avata. Not as a welcomed addition either. Whether you're flying in higher winds or just at high speeds, any sort of fast yaw turn results in an instant spaz out of the drone. To make matters even worse, regardless of if you're in manual mode or not, it'll always make an automatic correction back. This is not only terrifying as it feels really out of control, but it's also just a really frustrating limitation that the Avata lineup has consistently suffered from. Last but not least in this category is the lovely altitude limit. Look, this really isn't a fault, but it's super frustrating when flying around mountainous areas, as legally, height is measured from the ground level, not from your takeoff level. That means if you're flying up a ridgeline, you'll find yourself hitting that 500-meter height restriction pretty damn quickly, forcing you to fly back down even if you say only 10 meters from the actual ground. I also managed to nearly crash into a tree, not necessarily by my own fault here either. I hadn't changed the stock manual height limit, so I was flying in manual mode, and then, well, yeah, it flicked into normal mode at a certain height, and I literally nearly crashed. It was terrifying. So I'm gonna reluctantly hand over 2 endpoints here, as so far, I haven't been able to fully yaw flip the Avata 2 the same way that I could with the OG, so it inspires a little bit more confidence in my flying, just a little though. Anyways, that all leads me onto the final category before I let you know whether the OG Avata is now better value for money or if the Avata 2 is actually worth the upgrade. Before we can get there though, you first need to understand category 10, the price. Also, can we please not mention to my fiance that I used her fancy glass? I don't think that she would be too stoked. Anyways, right now there are a few ways to purchase the Avata 2. You can get the normal combo, the Fly More combo, or just buy the drone on its own. Now, with the current compatibility for full functionality, you'll also need to purchase a Remote 3 with any of the 2 combo options, which is a lovely $200 more. From now on, I'll be adding that on top of the original prices. So, if we first tackle the normal and Fly More combos, we're looking at $1,200 to $1,400. For this price, I truthfully think that you are getting a really simplistic, high-tech piece of kit that, should DJI unlock backward compatibility for, doesn't seem to have too many downsides. Getting the drone on its own might seem like the biggest bargain if you've already got the goggles 2 and Remote 2 coming in at just $490. This is actually a really solid price for a drone with a literal action camera quality built into it, especially when other O3 Cinewhoop drones are $300 to $500 and still need an extra camera mounted on top. It is certainly an expensive way to get into FPV, however, in terms of giving yourself the best chance of future-proofing your purchase and giving yourself a simplistic experience, this is a really solid avenue to take, so I'm handing over 7 endpoints. In total, the Avata 2 builds up to 67 endpoints, leaving me with a measly 33 to 8, which I'm actually a tad sad about. But that all brings us to the one big question. If you can buy yourself a used OG Avata combo for $500 what is now the better value for money combo? To do this in the fairest and most simplistic way possible, I'm bringing in 100 more M&Ms. I know, more for me to eat afterwards. Heck yeah. Alright, ease of setup and use, pretty much the same, so 10 points. Flight performance, significantly worse, so 4 points. Flight time, a little worse, but still pretty good, so 7 points. Camera quality, also a little worse, but pretty damn good, so 8 points. Repairability, surprisingly way better, so 5 points. Compatibility works with a similar amount of gear, so 5 points. Range, I've never had any issues, but it is ever so slightly worse, so 9 points. Build quality, it's a solid drone, but I would definitely say worse build quality, so 5 points. No faults? Plenty of faults here. So many in fact that I'm actually taking 1 point away. Price. Buying it brand new now would be silly, but secondhand this could be a bit of a bargain, so 5 points. That totals the OG Avata combo up to 57 endpoints, which again, isn't a terrible rating, but its fundamental flaws really do force its worth down. Here's the thing that's holding me back from recommending you to go out and get the cheaper OG Avata as a secondhand purchase. If you buy an FPV drone secondhand, it's almost guaranteed to have been crashed more than once, and although the OG Avata is certainly more crash resistant and repairable, so you can always replace the older parts, it's still not to say that fragile and expensive parts like the gimbal haven't been hit a few times either. Personally, I think it's too risky to purchase a secondhand OG Avata combo, and so if you start comparing brand new pricing between the OG Avata and the Avata 2, the Avata 2 gets you an action camera built inside, a much better performing drone, stupidly comfier goggles, longer flight times, and hopefully more future-proofed equipment. All that to say, the Avata 2 combo is kind of a bit of a no-brainer, better value for money option over an OG Avata combo right now. Does that mean if you already own an OG Avata combo, I think you should upgrade from it? Well, honestly, there are only 2 people who actually should. The first is someone who is craving a much higher quality camera for recording, And the second is someone who loves the simplicity of DJI's systems, but also feels super limited by the performance of the OG Avata. If you want to start racing or doing freestyle and stuff, I do think it's time to move on from DJI's pre-built drones, but don't stress though. I know the amount of options out there can feel super overwhelming. I've literally been in the exact same place as you before, hence why I made this video here on the top 5 mistakes that I wish I had known about earlier. Look, I know it'll really help you out, so I'll see you over there soon.